Hi, this is No Ordinary Voice of Spiritual Ventriloquism. You are listening to Dummy himself. What is in a name? Back in the 7th to 8th centuries BCE, while the Judeans, the Yahudim, had Egypt breathing down one side of their neck and Babylon breathing down the other, watching their brothers just being carried off to Syria some couple centuries before, up to that time, and a lot of their own people being brought into, bondage to the Assyrians, according to the Black Obelisk record of 201,000 Judeans being carried away into Assyria as well. What they did was when they began to start rewriting, or redacting, I should say, the Bible in the present form that we have it today, the Hebrew scribes, the Jerusalem scribes, they began to do things like compound the name of God or Yahweh to their own name in the form of Yah, El, Elon, things like that, which is fine. I guess that was a meaning of trying to find some more closeness. Perhaps they were doing quite a bit of self-introspection, wanting to draw nearer to their Elohim, given the certain political and military situation of the day. Quite understandable. So, even the names of prophets, like Jeremy was then Yeremiah, who, Ezekiel, Isaiah. So you see, that's what they did. So the current fad today, looking back upon that, especially among Hebrew Israelites, is bringing back an old tradition of compounding the name of Yah to your, name of your captivity or whatever. And I want to address one name in the Bible, which is significant, and a few more besides that, where this wasn't done. But as a matter of fact, there never was a Hebrew name given for some of these characters. But anyway, like I said, that's fine if that's what you want to do, and that draws you closer to Elohim. Then I'm all for it. But to think that somebody is, or that you're less than a servant of Yah or less than a son by, not identifying yourself by a Hebrew cognate. I just, don't think that, you should judge yourself that way, because, there's more than the names that are dropped off of people's lips to people's character. So anyway, one character. So, today we got people, that, I would be like, I don't know, I can't think of anything to replace the name Richard with. So I guess it would be EgyptYah or Richard L. It just don't, to me, it doesn't ring real well, so I would a whole lot, really wait for, the day when I'm supposed to be given a new name, and I don't want to be one in line, and then find out, I'm in the line for the new name. And when I get up there and I'm told that I already have mine, so, that I chose it for myself. So, but anyway, I'll leave it at that. And I'm not trying to mock, but these are certain things you just need to think about. One name in particular, if this was really so important back then in the 7th and 8th century, or even today, it certainly isn't so important that, that's going to change the course of your life. Because, even the Bible, for some strange reason, in treating Moses, for example, Moses' name means, of course, drawn from the water. That's what they make that out to be. But there was also, it's actually a slave's name. It is a kind of like a pet name. It's had the divine element removed from it because, there was Pharaoh's Moses. There was Moses, and Ramses, those are all derivatives of the same name, Moshe, in the Hebrew, and they were actually Egyptian names, and they carried a divine element by Ah, Re, Ra, Ki. In some cases, there was Ki Moses. But Moses was just Moses. And, the Bible doesn't even tell us that he even had a Hebrew name. Obviously, these were assimilated names, and he may have been being cultivated to become some type of a court person that could maybe be sent back to Canaan sometime to promote the Egyptian interests. We don't really know, because the Bible doesn't really tell us even a tenth of what the history that was actually really going on. We don't really always have the whole picture from Scripture itself. But anyway, and then there's, for example, there's and what does Ra and Ah and Re and Ki and all those? They're kind of like child of Ah, child of Ra, child of this that type of thing. There's a divine association. You have some type of an Egyptian deity, and then that Ah, Re, Ra is the divine portion of that name that's been removed. And the reason it was removed in the case of Moses was because he was generally what would be considered an Asiatic, and that he was a servant. He was basically a slave, or at least born into a slave family. So whatever the circumstances was, he was named by Egyptians by that name, and he carried that name through his death. That name still carries through all of the Torah and the prophets, and still to this day, there's no other identification of this person called Moses by any other name other than the Egyptian name that was given to him, at least as far as I'm aware of. Another example of some of the Levites was Merari, who were the sons, who were actually the musicians of the priesthood. Hophni, which was one of the Levites, Pinchas, which means Nubian or black, which also does identify the color of the Israelites, by the way, at least the Levites. Anyway, so the names, the Egyptians' names that these people had, obviously means that they were assimilated Asiatics, which does give, a lot of credence to the Bible, that, at least what the Bible is attempting to describe, at least as the Israelites being in Egypt, is obvious, that there's something to this. You can't, because there's a lot of people out there that are trying to dismiss that the Israelites were ever in Egypt, which is kind of ridiculous, because the very names that were born here were like servant names or pet names of Egyptian deified ones, like pharaohs and whatnot. Generally, I believe that they would have taken upon the name of their masters, just like the practice was here in the U.S. with Africans. They would be named Jefferson and Smith and, things like that, or, they might have a Jewish last name or something like that if it's a Jewish plantation owner. So, but in any regret, or any regard, the Bible doesn't seem to care too much about name changes or about names as much as the Bible cares about the function and the character of the person, even though there is a lot of meaning in the name. Moses was an Egyptian as far as his name is concerned. Hebrew by descent, Egyptian by, adopted servant or something like that into the family of Pharaoh. But anyway, the Bible doesn't seem to treat names as much as it treats the character or of the individual, because all these people are mentioned in the Scripture. Some of them are great men of great renown, and the Bible doesn't too much care about their real Hebrew name as much as they wanted to convey who they were and the functions that they performed. So anyway, that's all I got. Just a little snippet today on the history of the Hebrews. Have a good day.